Hey, what is up everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today I was going to go through some of the photos I took on a recent trip to Philadelphia and kind of use that to talk about some of the things I've been thinking about in photography lately. You know, if you don't know, I'm a professional photographer, a commercial photographer. I do portraits, products, events, that kind of thing. This trip, I was meeting up with an old friend, picked him up in Youngstown. We drove out to Philadelphia. We got there on a Monday. The plan was to see Bob Dylan on Tuesday night. Well, it wasn't just the plan, we did. Hang out for a couple days. On Wednesday, I met up with a buddy that I know through my cycling YouTube channel. We rode bikes around. So we got there on Monday in late afternoon, checked into the hotel and kind of hit the streets. I had my R5 with me with the 24 to 105 f4L, which is a lens that I kind of consider a jack of all trades, a master of none. It could do everything competently. Nothing about the lens is ever going to wow you. It's not super fast. It has some fringing. It's not my favorite colors. I actually put some effort into fixing the colors in Photoshop. But anyways, after we checked in, we started walking and we were going to go hit a bar. This first photo here is of the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. Even from this photo, if you've ever been to New York, you could probably tell it's designed by the same designer as the Manhattan Bridge. This was just a photo. We were walking, I stopped, and I just thought the angles were kind of cool. We then hung out in actually the bar that they based It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on. And we were basically just talking. We haven't seen each other since his wedding in Boston, you know, before the pandemic and everything. So it's one of those things where I'm looking back now and I'm like, the bar was kind of a cool dive bar that was our style, a mix between, you know, I guess maybe like a hipster dive, craft beer and cheap Pabst and stuff like that. And now I kind of wish it's like, why didn't I take a photo of even the bar or me and Eric talking? But it's also one of those things where it's like, we were just having such a good time catching up that thinking about taking photos kind of escaped me. And that's, you know, something that happens more and more where I am shooting all the time for work. Years ago, there's no chance I would not have at least pulled out the camera and done a selfie or taken a picture of the back bar or the sign when we left. But just having a good time with a friend, and that's one thing that I've found interesting lately is, my able to overcome my total obsession with having to take photos at all times. It's still there, but, you know, I could get by. When we were walking to the next place, it was already dark, and this is just a photo I captured of a guy on one of the city bikes. Nothing too exciting there. I just still kind of liked it enough to share on Flickr. This is a photo that was kind of reminded me of a photo I had taken in New York City. This one, not quite as cool, but the lights on the building are kind of cool, and looking at the cars, you know, standing in a crosswalk when there's a red light and turning down a city street is just, I don't know, I think it's kind of a unique perspective. Maybe people don't do that often, so maybe it looks a little different. And then this is from a bar we were sitting in, and I think I remember Eric had got up to use the restroom, and that's when I pulled my camera out to take a picture of this, the backside of the neon sign, which, again, something I just thought was kind of cool, but I didn't take a single picture of us actually hanging out in that bar. And that was pretty much it for the night. I got up in the morning before Eric. He was kind of chilling. I went downstairs to get the continental breakfast. Then I just kind of I hit the streets and started walking. But it was a really gray day. So I was trying not to get much sky in my photos. And there really wasn't, you know, any angle or decent light. This is just the menorah down in, I think they probably call it Independence Square. All the historic parts of the city are. And here is actually Independence Hall. Same thing you could see. I'm usually not a fan of vertical crops. It worked really well for this one because, again, I didn't really want the sky or the sides, and I really liked the juxtaposition of this old building with more modern office towers in the background. Not super modern, obviously. But, yeah, I just thought it was cool. This is shot at 105 millimeters, and that's why I like having the long lens with me to really compress the field of view, I guess would be the term. Here's another just a cool hand-painted sign. I obviously love cycling stuff. This was actually a pet store now, so there were no bikes in there, but I love the hand painting and all that. Same thing with this. It just thought it was a cool angle. This guy in the yellow and this glass, I think it might be an entrance to the subway or something like that. The light just wasn't that good this day, so these were the kind of shots I could take. I must have walked alone 10 miles maybe. And then when I met up with Eric, probably another 10. And most of the time my camera stayed in my bag. And that's one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately and been doing differently. Now, when I will go on a hike, I'm almost always going to have my camera on my back. But there are times when it just doesn't leave the bag anymore, where when I was younger, I always would have tried to take some photos. But if it's a spot, especially that I've been before, it's like, there's not a good photo to take here, so why bother? You know what I mean? And that's kind of how this day went. Unless I really saw something that I felt like I could make a little bit out of, or I was just taking a tourist shot for the memory, like, say this one, this is my name. So I thought it was kind of cool. And then Adobe Cafe in the background. I just thought like the two things were cool. That this is just a cool view looking down the street, but again, not great light, as good as could be. Like, I find with these cloudy days, like especially like with the Independence Hall photo, that I'll end up cranking up the clarity slider in Lightroom or Camera Raw, whichever you happen to use in other programs. Getting that like kind of edge sharpness and contrast is something that usually like helps make these photos pop a little more. Yeah, just cool looking at the old City Hall top with the modern glass towers in the background. Again, wish I had a prettier sky. Still kind of like the photo. There's a street that's all Italian, like old Italian markets, and this is a butcher shop. And I kind of like the butchers with the little bit of neon just hinting at what's going on there. Here looking down the street with the kind of busyness there in that Italian section in the buildings, I thought was kind of cool. We came upon the famous Philly cheesesteak place, Gino's, so we had to have it. But again, tourist shot looks a little better than your typical tourist shot because I could use the shallow depth of field. And then the next day is when I was meeting my buddy Rick to ride bikes. Basically just a photo of my bike because I always take photos of my bike. This is a shot I really like, and this is just, so the day we rode, we actually did have good light. And again, almost when the light is this good, it doesn't matter what you're photographing in a way, if that makes any sense. But the shadows and the angles and the kind of golden light here, with this being, late fall, so magic hour pretty much lasts all day in somewhere like Philly. Another one, with the lady sitting up there looking at her phone with the dog. I just thought putting her all at the edge of the frame kind of looked cool. Rick took me on like a tour of like kind of his Philly and like a lot of cool places, and we rode over the bridge, which is amazing. I just didn't even realize how wide the Delaware River was in Philly. I've never been there, and how big the bridges were. I mean, the scale is New York City like of the bridges in the river. This is a bridge that, there's photographers and done an amazing job of capturing this. And so to me, it was kind of cool to try and think of something that might be more of a unique angle. So again, shooting really long, 105 millimeters down where the subway cars would go over the bridge. And there's a old battleship there, decent light, so snapped it. And there's a view of the bridge from farther away, and I just thought it was really cool. I like the framing it in. I remember my first high school photography teacher, when he was teaching us that lesson about using framing and like that. There's Rick. This shot I still posted, but I actually missed the focus. That's one thing with the R5. The face detect is so good. Sometimes I forget to override it. I rarely like a photo where the foreground is out of focus. If I zoom in here, you could see that my R5 went right to the face it could find, even though it's being blocked a little by that barbecue type thing, whatever you call that. But yeah, it would go between those two guys facing me before it would grab the closer thing, which an older style autofocus system would have, grabbed. But I still like the photo as the memory, because I didn't actually take many photos of Rick either. He's a photographer as well, and it was interesting because he actually posed me a couple times and took photos, and he had bartenders asked if he could take their photo, or people we were talking to. And it's one of those things where I'm like, why don't I do that more? But then again, I'm like, I'm also on vacation, And it's funny because I do sometimes think the more I take, the more work I'm making for myself when I already have work to do when I go off to Philly for a week and I get back and I have to get my actual professional stuff done. It's just kind of an interesting, thing that I think of more and more, that I'm like, man, I would have been setting my alarm for early in the morning to hit the streets, and all that a couple years ago. Whereas Now it's like, well, when I'm out and about, I'm going to take some photos. It's like, I still do want to get something real nice when I travel, but, and especially if it's somewhere I've never been and might not be able to get back to. The good thing about Philly is I feel like it is a city I'm going to get back to, not just Rick there, but I have a couple other friends I've met over the internet, and then just some of my friends from here seeing my pictures would be interested in going and riding around. But yeah, it's almost a new thing in my life for photography not to be the number one priority. Here's over by the museum. This is where they've moved the Rocky statue. It used to be at that famous spot on top of the stairs. This is another thing with me too, where it's like, there's a couple guys there like, oh, go in there. We'll take your camera, your phone, and take your photo. Like, I don't care about a photo of me with the Rocky statue. I like capturing what happens at the Rocky statue, and not the Rocky statue, almost any tourist type thing. And so here it's like, I'd rather have the woman who's taking the photo with her phone and the guy. And this is from the steps of the museum. There's this great broad boulevard that goes directly to City Hall, and there was still some color in the trees, which I couldn't believe. I shot a bunch right here, probably, 15, 20 shots. But trying to get the really big broad ones, if you look in the background, you could see there's just a haze to the day. Then they just didn't look as good. So I actually liked focusing on these two people hanging out and sitting on the steps. This is a place we had lunch when we were out riding bikes. I think the colors are cool and all that. This is from my table. I didn't get up to make the angle better or anything like that. It's just to me, one of my postcards from the trip. This is from the bridge again, but looking back at downtown Philadelphia. That's actually our hotel right there, that Holiday Inn, which is kind of cool. It was a really cool spot right on the river. And these cool old piers right there. But yeah, a shot of the city. And if you see the unedited one, you'll realize, there's a lot of haze with the angle of the sun and all that. So used a lot of the dehaze filter in Camera Raw, which just really works wonders. This is looking towards Camden. So it's from the same exact spot looking the other direction. Nothing outstanding. This is almost like for my memory, I was here type thing. So yeah, one thing I always think about too is cropping with photos and portrait versus landscape. I almost always like landscape better. And this is one of the times where a vertical crop is the better looking angle. But yeah, it gives me like something that I really dislike about Instagram is I feel like I need to shoot these vertical shots now because that's what looks so much better, or at least get it to 1:1. Square crop like Instagram used to be completely, which is not in general what I want. I think you should be basing crops based on, what works best for the picture, which here obviously is vertical with that, just like that really blue sky. I don't know. It's one of those things that I find annoying about modern photography, but you just got to get used to it. It's, it is what it is. This was a bar me and Rick were at, and they had these lights hanging down from the bar, and it just made for this perfect product shot photo of this beer I was drinking. And so, I think these next ones are my Instagram crops, so they're 4x5, and that's the other limiting factor, as I'm sure you're aware. If you do the carousel of images in one post, so you're going to post like 10 images to Instagram, they all have to have the same, crop factor. And I know the maximum is 4x5, so that's what I try and go with. Here it worked really well. It works with this image, even with the blown out sky. Same with this one. I really like this photo of the new buildings behind the older office towers, like this bridge shot. But again, here I'm cutting off the base of the bridge, and if I had like the actual full photo looks better because it has keeps your eye from rolling off the bottom of the image. And then here, you could see this ruins the photo, but I still kind of wanted to have it on there because I knew it'd be a conversation piece for everyone who's been to Philly to talk about oh, you went to the blah, 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 Geno's. But again, I'm cutting off the letters. This is not the shot that I would take. This shot is shot in landscape, and I put a horrible crop on it just to get it up on Instagram. And this is actually one I did shoot vertical, and you can see it's similar to the other one. I've just moved the perspective over a little bit. Still like this one. This one works vertically, and I probably put a decent amount of work into dehazing the sky on this. So just in summary, this is a really small amount of finished photos for me to have posted over a 4-day trip. That's not typical or what it would have been back in the day. But again, it's just that, I'm having a lot of social interaction and enjoying myself a lot, and also trying to remind myself you are on vacation. I always want my camera with me, and I do want to be photographing, but sometimes it's I'm glad that I've been able to be hey, leave it in the bag a bit. The other thing I have going is with my other channel, which is now my main channel, started out being a mix of this kind of video, and cycling is now all pretty much cycling. I was making a video for that channel, and shooting with a GoPro when I'm riding my bike is really unobtrusive. Anyone who's ever ridden with me probably realizes it. It's like you barely even notice I'm doing it. So that's also a nice thing to do when I'm traveling, because I get that like visual postcard of what I'm doing, and it just doesn't take as much effort at the time. You know, obviously editing video takes a little while, but I almost even feel like I still put more effort into these limited amount of photos than I did into a 5-minute or 6-minute video. But yeah, so that's kind of given me a new outlet when I'm traveling and a different thing to try out and do, and I enjoy it. And I guess I've maybe put a little more of my effort towards that kind of thing lately, which takes away from me just doing hobby photography when I'm traveling. I don't know. I think that's kind of just about it for this first video of trying to get back into finding my voice talking about photography again, which is something up until about a year ago I was still doing a lot. I don't know. I'm going to do more of these and keep doing them and try and have more specific topics. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, keep following along, and I will see you in the next one.